Have you ever had a cruel thought about yourself that seemed to come out of nowhere? Have you felt a wave of negativity, self-criticism, or fear that had no logical cause? Have you found yourself sabotaging your own success, postponing your dreams, repeating destructive patterns as if an invisible force were holding you back? We have been taught that this force is us, that it is our shadow, our weakness. But forbidden knowledge, the wisdom whispered in mystery schools throughout the centuries, reveals a stranger and more unsettling truth. The truth is that we are not alone in our minds. We live in a psychic ecosystem, and not all the life forms that inhabit it are our allies. Predators exist, invaders exist, mental parasites exist. They are not literal creatures. They are something far more insidious. They are self-perpetuating thought forms and low-vibration emotional patterns that latch onto our consciousness and feed on our most precious energy, our attention and our emotions. Doubt, self-criticism, chronic worry, addiction to drama, these are not just bad habits. They are the symptoms of a psychic infection. This audiobook is not a guide to positive thinking. It is a manual of exorcism. It is the forbidden knowledge to identify, starve, and eradicate these invisible invaders from your inner ecosystem. You will learn to recognize their symptoms, strengthen your psychic defenses, and reclaim the sovereignty of your own mental space. The cleansing is about to begin. And it is not for the faint of heart. Welcome to the cleansing of your soul. Chapter 1. The ecosystem of the mind. The first and most fundamental mistake we make is believing in the illusion of a singular, unified self. We say, I think, I feel, I have decided, as if there were a single monarch seated on the throne of our consciousness, directing the kingdom with a coherent will. But the truth, as anyone who has tried to keep a New Year's resolution can attest, is much more complex. Our mind is not a monarchy. It is a noisy parliament. It is a vast and often chaotic ecosystem, inhabited by a multitude of voices and forces, each with its own agenda, its own fears and its own desires. There is the voice of the inner child, who seeks security and pleasure. There is the voice of the relentless critic, who seeks perfection and punishes mistakes. There is the voice of the silent sage, who whispers truth from intuition. There is the voice of the programmed ego, who seeks approval and social status. Living in a state of unconsciousness is allowing this chaotic parliament to govern by default, with the noisiest or most fearful faction taking control at any given moment. The result is a life of contradiction, self-sabotage, and inner conflict. The first step to healing is to understand the nature of the inhabitants of our inner ecosystem, and to learn to differentiate between the native flora and fauna of our soul and the invasive species that have colonized our mind. The inhabitants of the ecosystem. Natives versus parasites. 1. The native flora, the thoughts of the soul. Native. Thoughts and feelings are the authentic expressions of your true self, of your deepest consciousness. They are the natural flora and fauna of your ecosystem. How are they recognized? Their quality is expansion. A thought born of the soul always feels expansive. It generates a feeling of openness, possibility, peace, love, or creativity. Their purpose is growth. Native thoughts always push you toward a bigger, braver, and more authentic version of yourself. They are often silent and subtle. They do not shout for attention. They are the whisper of intuition, the flash of inspiration, the serene certainty of the heart. These are the inhabitants we want to cultivate. They are the ones that create an inner ecosystem of health, vitality, and harmony. The invasive species, the mental parasites. A parasite, in biology, is an organism that lives at the expense of its host, draining its resources and often causing it harm. A mental parasite operates on the same principle. It is a thought form or an emotional pattern that has lodged itself in your consciousness and feeds on your most vital resource, your attention and your emotional energy. How do you recognize a parasite? It has 4 unmistakable characteristics. It is repetitive and compulsive. A parasite is not a thought you have once. It is a loop. It is a thought that repeats over and over and over in your mind, often against your will. It is obsessive worry, resentful memory, incessant self-criticism. It is emotionally charged and negative. The parasite needs nourishment, and its preferred nourishment is low-vibration emotions. It feeds on your fear, your anger, your guilt, your shame. In fact, its main survival strategy is to provoke you into generating these emotions, creating a cycle of addiction in which the parasitic thought generates the emotion, and the emotion in turn feeds and strengthens the thought. It is self-sabotaging. The advice of a mental parasite always leads you toward contraction and limitation. It will tell you not to take a risk, that you're not good enough, that others will judge you, that you don't deserve to be happy. Its goal is not your well-being. It is its own survival. And it survives by keeping you in a prison of fear and inaction. It feels foreign. In the deepest part of you, there is often a feeling that this voice is not really you. It is a feeling of being possessed by a pattern of negativity. This is the intuitive recognition that an invasive species has taken control of a part of your ecosystem. The forbidden knowledge reveals that there are two main sources of psychic infection. The inner parasite, the untended shadow. The most powerful, most intimate parasite often doesn't come from the outside. It is born from within. It is born from the parts of ourselves that we have denied, repressed, and exiled to the darkness of our unconscious. The psychologist Carl Jung called this part of us the shadow. It is the basement of our psyche, where we have banished all the qualities that, in our childhood, we learned were bad or unacceptable: our anger, our envy, our selfishness, our vulnerability. Energy cannot be destroyed. A part of us that is repressed does not disappear. It festers in the darkness, and often it mutates. It turns into a semi-autonomous psychic entity. It becomes a parasite. Natural anger, when repressed by the belief that good people don't get angry, can mutate into the parasite of self-criticism, a voice that directs that anger inward, constantly attacking you. Healthy self-interest, when repressed by the belief that thinking about yourself is selfish, can mutate into the parasite of guilt, which attacks you every time you try to set a boundary or take care of your own needs. Natural fear, when not processed, can become the parasite of worry, an entity that feeds itself by creating catastrophic scenarios to keep you in a state of paralysis. These inner parasites are the most difficult to eradicate because they are born of our own energy. The process of healing here is not to kill the parasite, but to reintegrate the energy of the shadow from which it was born. The external parasite, social contagion. We don't just generate parasites, we also contract them. The collective consciousness is a psychic ocean, and it is full of thought larvae. We are constantly exposed to infection. Cultural contagion. Certain ideas, certain memes are inherently parasitic. Think of the beliefs that advertising and consumer culture install in us. The belief that you are not enough as you are, and that you need an external product to be whole. This idea is a parasite. It lodges itself in your mind and feeds on your insecurity, draining your energy and money. Media contagion. The 24-hour news cycle often feeds on the parasite of fear. The belief that the world is a dangerous place is incredibly addictive. It keeps our attention hijacked and keeps us in a state of low-grade stress from which it feeds. Interpersonal contagion, energy vampires. Finally, we can be infected through direct contact with people who are already heavily infected. A person who lives in a state of chronic negativity, complaint, or drama often subconsciously seeks out others from whom they can feed. They latch their energy field onto yours, and through complaint or conflict, provoke an emotional reaction in you: anger, frustration, sadness. And that emotional energy you generate is the food that their parasite needs. The map of the ecosystem is complete. You have learned to identify the inhabitants of your mind, and now you understand their origin. You know that parasites are born from your own untended shadow and are contracted through the social ether. You are no longer an unconscious host. You are the biologist of your own psyche. You have the knowledge. The next step is sterilization, purification. Chapter 2. The internal parasite, the negative ego. To understand the negative ego, we must first make a crucial distinction. The ego, in its healthy form, is a necessary tool for life in this world. It is our sense of identity, our functional self that allows us to interact, make decisions, and have an individual experience. But this functional ego has a shadow, a distorted version of itself that is born from the fear of annihilation and the primordial wound of separation from the source. This is the negative ego. It is not a thing but a self-perpetuating pattern of energy and thought. It is a parasite that has lodged itself in our system and has learned to manipulate us to ensure its own survival. The negative ego is not you. It is a conditioned mental structure, a collection of defense mechanisms you adopted in your childhood to protect yourself. But what was once a protective mechanism has in adulthood become a prison. To free yourself, you must become an expert in the anatomy and tactics of your own inner parasite, the anatomy of the shadow. The three faces of the negative ego. The negative ego is a shapeshifter, but it manifests primarily through three great archetypes, three voices that operate in our mind. The inner critic, the judge. This is the most common and most recognizable voice. It is the relentless judge who resides in our head, with a gavel always ready to pass sentence on our every move. Its dialogue is a constant poison of self-criticism and judgment. You are not good enough. You've failed again. You are a failure. Who do you think you are to try that? Look at others, they are so much better than you. Where does this voice come from? It is often the internalization of the voice of an authority figure from our childhood, a demanding parent, a critical teacher. We have taken their voice and made it our own. What is its parasitic strategy? It feeds on your vital energy through guilt and shame. Every time you judge yourself, you generate a low-vibration emotion, a contraction in your being, and that energy is the food of the critic. Its goal is to keep you in a state of paralysis, of doubt, of unworthiness, because a person who feels powerful and worthy is a threat to its existence. It keeps you small in order to continue controlling you. Foti. The victim mentality, the martyr. If the critic attacks you from within, the victim attacks you from without, projecting the cause of its suffering onto the world. The martyr's voice is one of complaint and self-pity. Its script is a litany of injustices. Poor me. No one understands me. Life is so unfair to me. The same thing always happens to me. Where does it come from? It is often a learned mechanism for getting love and attention. Perhaps in our childhood, we learned that we only received care and affection when we were sick or in trouble. Victimization became a strategy to satisfy a legitimate need for connection. What is its parasitic strategy? The victim parasite feeds on the sympathy of others and the justification for one's own inaction. Every time you tell your story of suffering and someone says, "Poor you," the parasite receives a dose of energy. And more importantly, the identity of the victim absolves you of the terrifying responsibility of your own power. As long as the culprit is out there, you don't have to do the difficult work of changing from within. It keeps you in a state of powerlessness, because powerlessness, although painful, is safe. To the drama addict, the saboteur. Finally, there is the most chaotic and addictive voice, the parasite that thrives on the intensity of conflict and crisis. This is the part of us that, although consciously longing for peace, is subconsciously bored by it. Calm feels uncomfortable, almost like a death, and so subtly or not so subtly, it creates drama. It provokes an argument with a partner just when everything is going well. It procrastinates on an important project until it becomes a last-minute crisis. It is attracted to toxic and volatile relationships. Where does it come from? Often from a childhood environment where chaos and emotional intensity were the norm. The nervous system has become accustomed to, has become addicted to, the high doses of adrenaline and cortisol that accompany drama. Peace feels strange. What is its parasitic strategy? It feeds on emotional intensity. Anger, panic, despair are a feast for it. It doesn't matter if the emotion is good or bad. What it seeks is intensity. It keeps you on a roller coaster cycle because calm and stability are a threat to its energy supply. The workshop of the inner exorcist, the practices of liberation. We have unmasked the three faces of our inner parasite, the judge who condemns us, the martyr who complains, and the saboteur who creates chaos. We have seen how these voices are not us, but conditioned programs that feed on our energy. But how do you dislodge an old and deeply ingrained tenant? How do you perform the exorcism? You don't fight it with fire, but with light. You don't expel it with violence, but with a strategic wisdom. The process of liberation has three phases: observation, starvation, and replacement. The first practice, the light of consciousness, observation. To eradicate a parasite, the first step is not to fight, but to observe. You must bring the light of your consciousness into the shadows where it thrives. The practice is that of mindfulness of the inner voices. You sit in silence. And instead of being hijacked by the voice of the critic or the victim, you become the scientist who observes it. The pattern journal. You take a journal. And for a week you become a detective of your own mind. You write down without judgment every time one of the parasitic voices appears. You note the trigger that activated it and the emotion it generated. At 10:15, after getting an email from my boss, the critic's voice appeared and said, "You made a mistake again. You're not good enough." I felt a contraction in my stomach and shame, de-identification. In doing this, you create a separation. You are no longer the voice. You are the consciousness that hears it. You are no longer the thought. You are the observer of the thought. This is the first and most crucial act of liberation. The parasite only has power over you when you believe it is you. The light of your observation begins to weaken it, because parasites, like all creatures of the shadow, hate to be seen. The second practice, the starvation protocol, cutting off the supply. A parasite cannot survive without nourishment. And the nourishment of the negative ego is your emotional reaction. The fundamental practice for eradicating it is to cut off its food supply. When the parasitic thought appears and says you're a failure, its goal is for you to react with the emotion of shame or sadness. That emotion is its food. The starvation protocol is the art of conscious non-reaction. When the parasitic thought appears, you observe it thanks to the first practice. You feel the familiar pang of negative emotion in your body, and in that moment, you make a sovereign decision. You do not latch onto the emotion. You do not wallow in it. You do not build a story around it. You simply feel the physical sensation in your body. Breathe into it and let it be, without giving it your mental energy. It's like watching a child have a tantrum. You watch with compassion, but you refuse to give it the candy it is screaming for. At first, this is incredibly difficult. Your body, addicted to that emotional chemistry, will scream for its dose. But if you persist, if you repeatedly refuse to feed the parasite with your reaction, it will begin to weaken. It will starve. The third practice, the counter-narrative, cultivating native flora. Once you have stopped feeding the parasite, you must start cultivating the native flora in its place. You cannot leave a void. You must oppose the negative ego's narrative with a counter-narrative of your true self. This is not a practice of superficial, positive thinking. It is the act of deliberately choosing which voice in the parliament of your mind you are, going to honor and amplify, the antidote to the critic. When the judge's voice attacks you, you counter it with the voice of self-compassion. If the critic says you made a stupid mistake, your counter-narrative is, I am a human being who is learning. Every mistake is an opportunity to grow. I treat myself with the same kindness I would a friend. The antidote to the victim. When the martyr's voice complains, you counter it with the voice of sovereign power. If the victim says no one helps me, your counter-narrative is, I am the source of my own power. I have all the resources I need to create the life I choose. I attract perfect support at the perfect time. The antidote to the drama. When the saboteur craves chaos, you counter it with the voice of peace. If the drama addict incites you to start a fight, your counter-narrative is, I choose peace. I choose harmony. My well-being is my top priority. The internal parasite is not killed with violence. It is dissolved with the light of consciousness. It is starved by a lack of reaction, and it is replaced by the truth of your own being. Chapter 3. The External Parasite. Social contagion. Imagine that the collective consciousness of humanity is a vast ocean. Each of us is a drop in that ocean, but we are also the entire ocean. We are intimately interconnected by invisible currents of thought and emotion. What the psychiatrist Carl Jung called the collective unconscious, and the philosopher Teilhard de Chardin called the noosphere. This psychic ocean is not sterile. It is full of life. And just like the physical ocean, it contains both nourishing life forms and parasitic life forms. These life forms are memes, not in the sense of a funny internet image, but in their original definition, coined by the biologist Richard Dawkins. A unit of cultural information that replicates from mind to mind. A meme is an idea, a belief, a fashion, a melody, and some of these memes are inherently parasitic. They are viruses of the mind. Their main goal is not to inform or empower their host, you, but simply to replicate. And they often do so at the expense of your peace, your power, and your vital energy. To become a sovereign of your mind, you must learn to recognize these viruses, to develop a psychic immune system, and to consciously choose what information you allow to infect you. The anatomy of contagion. The 3 great viruses. Thousands of mental viruses exist, but 3 of them are responsible for the majority of the suffering pandemic in the modern world. The virus of scarcity. This is perhaps the most widespread virus. It is the fundamental belief that there is not enough. There is not enough money, not enough time, not enough love, not enough opportunities. Contagion mechanism. This virus spreads through our economic systems, which are based on competition. It spreads through advertising, whose sole purpose is to convince you that you are missing something to be happy. It spreads through constant comparison on social media. Symptoms of infection. Once this virus infects your mental ecosystem, it produces the symptoms of envy, jealousy, greed, and constant anxiety. It forces you to see the world as a zero-sum game, where someone else's success is your failure. Parasitic strategy. It feeds on your energy of longing. It keeps you in a state of perpetual dissatisfaction, always chasing the next thing you believe will make you whole, thus ensuring its own survival. The virus of fear. If scarcity is the economic virus, fear is the political virus. It is the fundamental belief that the world is a dangerous place. Contagion mechanism. Its main vector of transmission is the 24-hour news cycle and social media algorithms. These systems have discovered that fear is the most addictive commodity. It keeps our eyes glued to the screen. A story about an act of kindness receives a fraction of the attention of one about a crime, a war, or an economic crisis. Symptoms of infection. A mind infected by the virus of fear lives in a state of low-grade stress. It sees threats everywhere. It becomes tribal, distrustful of the other. It suppresses the immune system and lives in a state of contraction. Parasitic strategy. It feeds on your hijacked attention. Fear is the master of consciousness capture. By keeping you in a state of constant alertness, it drains your mental energy and prevents you from focusing it on the creation of the life you desire. The virus of unworthiness. This is the deepest and most personal virus. It is the belief that there is something fundamentally broken or insufficient in me. Contagion mechanism. It is often contracted in childhood through criticism or a lack of validation. But then it is massively reinforced by almost every industry, from beauty to superficial self-help. We are sold the idea that we need a cream, a car, a degree, or a guru to fix ourselves. Symptoms of infection. The symptoms are low self-esteem, imposter syndrome, a constant search for external validation, and self-sabotage. Parasitic strategy. It feeds on your surrendered power. Every time you believe the solution is outside of you, you are giving up your sovereignty. The virus of unworthiness convinces you that you are a weak host who needs a savior, when the truth is that you are the only one who has the power to heal your own ecosystem. The first practice, the development of the psychic immune system. Your psychic immune system is your personal energy field, your aura. A strong, coherent, and vibrant energy field is like a shield that naturally repels low frequencies. A weak, incoherent, and porous field is vulnerable to infection. Coherence as a shield. The fundamental practice for strengthening your field is the cultivation of heart coherence, which we have already explored. You dedicate time every day to generating elevated emotions. You know you are not just feeling good, you are energizing your shield. A coherent heart emits a signal so powerful and ordered that the chaotic frequencies of fear and complaint cannot easily penetrate it. Grounding as an anchor. You become a practitioner of grounding. You regularly take a moment to visualize roots growing from the soles of your feet and sinking deeply into the earth. This simple imaginary act connects you with the stable, calm energy of the planet. It helps you discharge any parasitic energy you may have picked up and anchors you in your own power, making you less susceptible to being swept away by the currents of collective panic. The second practice, the art of conscious consumption. The psychic guardian knows that every piece of information he consumes is food for his mind. He becomes a nutritionist for his own soul. His practice is that of the information diet, the information fast, The initiate often begins with a fast. He commits to spending a period of time, a day, a weekend, without consuming any news or social media. This act of detoxification allows his nervous system to calm down and makes him hyper-aware of how much negativity he was consuming by default. Conscious curation. After the fast, he does not return to unconscious consumption. He becomes a curator of his information flow. Before reading an article, watching a video, or entering a conversation, he asks himself the Guardian's question: is this food going to nourish my soul or feed my parasites? He deliberately chooses to consume content that inspires him, educates him, and elevates him, and drastically reduces his exposure to sources that traffic in fear and indignation. The third practice, the energetic boundary. Finally, the Guardian learns to manage the most direct source of contagion, contact with other people. His practice is the establishment of energetic boundaries. When he encounters a person who operates from a strong infection of negativity, an energy vampire, the initiate does not enter the battle. He knows that judgment or confrontation would only drag him down to the same low frequency. Instead, he practices two subtle arts: the shield of compassion. Instead of judging the negative person, he sees them with compassion. He recognizes that this person is suffering, that they are the host of a parasite that is devouring them. This compassion is not pity. It is a detached recognition, and this energy of compassion acts as a non-resistant shield. The other person's negativity, not finding a wall of judgment to collide with, often dissolves or seeks another target. The art of loving amputation. The Guardian knows that it is not his mission to heal everyone. If a relationship is consistently toxic and draining, and the other person shows no willingness to change, the most loving practice, both for himself and the other, is that of energetic amputation. He sets clear boundaries. He reduces the time of exposure, or if necessary, he cuts off the connection completely. He does not do so out of anger, but out of a radical act of self-preservation. He knows he cannot allow an infected limb to jeopardize the health of his entire kingdom. The psychic ocean will always be full of currents, both nourishing and toxic. You have learned to stop being a passive swimmer, carried away by every tide of collective fear. You are now the captain of your own ship. You have strengthened your hull with coherence, you have charted your course with conscious consumption, and you have learned to anchor yourself far from the storms. You are a guardian of your own mind. Chapter 4. The Light of Consciousness. The universal antiseptic, the first instinct of the untrained mind, upon discovering an invader in its garden, is war. It tries to pull out the weed with violence, fights the parasite, hates the infection. But in the realm of consciousness, war is a trap. The forbidden knowledge reveals a fundamental law of energy. What you resist persists. When you fight a negative thought, you are making a fatal strategic mistake. You are giving it the only thing it needs to survive, your attention. Fighting a parasite is feeding it. It's like an endless struggle with a monster. Even if you think you're winning, you're still bound to it, still in its territory, still spending your vital energy on the battle. The wise exorcist does not fight the darkness. He simply turns on the light. Welcome to the first and most powerful of the exorcist's armaments, the light of consciousness, the nature of light, the power of pure observation. To understand this tool, we must first redefine our understanding of consciousness. Consciousness is not your thoughts. It is not your emotions. It is not your body. Consciousness is the space in which all your thoughts, emotions, and sensations appear and disappear. Imagine your thoughts are clouds. Your consciousness is the sky. You are not the clouds, no matter how dark and stormy they are. You are the vast, silent, and unchanging sky that contains them. The sky never fights the clouds. It simply allows them to be and to pass, knowing that its own blue, clear nature always remains intact behind them. Consciousness is this ability to be the silent witness. It is the act of observing your own inner experience without judgment, without analysis, and above all, without identification. And this light of pure observation has an alchemical, almost magical property. It is the universal antiseptic for psychic infection. Mental parasites are creatures of the shadow. They thrive in the darkness of unconsciousness. Their greatest power resides in their ability to remain invisible, to blend in with you, to convince you that you are them. The thought, I am not enough, has power over you only as long as you believe that you are the one who originates that thought. The moment you take a step back and, like the sky, watch the thought cloud pass, here is the thought of I am not enough. The spell is broken. In that instant of pure observation, 3 miraculous things happen. You create a separation. You are no longer the thought. You are the consciousness that is aware of the thought. You have broken the identification. You cut off the food supply. By not identifying with the thought, you refuse to react emotionally to it. You stop feeding the parasite with the energy of your guilt or your fear. You bathe it in light. The light of your consciousness, which is neutral and non-dual, begins to dissolve the energetic structure of the parasitic thought. A negative thought cannot survive for long under the detached scrutiny of pure consciousness. It fades away like a ghost at dawn. This is the great paradox. The way to defeat the parasite is not by fighting it, but by observing it with a radical calm. The workshop of the light guardian. Distinguishing observation from rumination, it is crucial to differentiate this act of pure observation from its imposter, rumination. Rumination is thinking about your thoughts. It is latching onto the parasite story. The thought, I am not enough, appears and you get on that train, remembering all the times you have failed, imagining future failures. This is feeding the parasite. Observation is simply noticing the thought. It is watching the train pass through the station without getting on it. It is acknowledging its presence, the I am not enough train, and then gently returning your attention to the present moment. The first practice, the witness ritual. To turn on the light, the inner exorcist does not look for an external switch. He cultivates the muscle of observation through the witness ritual. His fundamental practice is mindfulness meditation. He sits in silence every day, not to relax but to train himself. He becomes the guardian at the gate of his perception. He chooses an anchor in the present, such as the sensation of his breath. This is his watchtower, his lookout post. His only task is to observe. When a parasitic thought, a worry, a self-criticism knocks on the door of his mind, he does not open it. He does not argue with it through the door. He simply, from his watchtower, notes its presence. The critic's voice has arrived. The fear messenger is here. And then, with gentle firmness, he returns his attention to his post, to his breath. Every time he performs this act of noticing and redirecting, he is strengthening his consciousness muscle. He is separating his identity from the parasite. With each repetition, the light of his witness becomes brighter and more stable. The second practice, the art of naming the demon. On the battlefield of daily life, when a parasite attacks with overwhelming force, the guardian uses a technique of quick exorcism, the art of naming the demon. When a wave of a parasitic emotion, anger, panic, shame, threatens to hijack him instead of being swept away by it, he pauses and names it mentally. He feels the anger rising in his chest and says inwardly, this is anger. He feels the panic oppressing him and says, interesting, this is panic. This simple act of naming has a profound neurological effect. It moves brain activity from the reactive emotional amygdala to the prefrontal cortex, the seat of the conscious observer. It's like turning on the light in a dark room. The moment you name the emotion, you stop being the emotion, and you become the consciousness that observes it. You have created a space, and in that space, you have the power to choose your response, instead of being a victim of your reaction. The third practice, somatic dissolution. The guardian knows that parasites don't just live as thoughts in the mind, they nest as trapped energy in the body. His final and deepest practice is to bring the light of consciousness to these physical dens. This is the practice of somatic dissolution. When the anxiety parasite attacks, you feel the knot in your stomach. The instinctive reaction is to run from that sensation, to distract yourself, to try to think it away. The initiate does the opposite. He surrenders to the sensation. He sits or lies down in a quiet place. He closes his eyes, and instead of fleeing from the knot in his stomach, he brings all the light of his attention directly to it. He explores it with the curiosity of a scientist. What shape does it have? What temperature? Does it vibrate? Does it move? He breathes into the sensation, imagining his breath is a warm liquid light that gently surrounds and penetrates the contracted energy. He does not try to eliminate the sensation. He does not judge it as bad. He simply bathes it in the unconditional light of his presence. In doing this, he is performing alchemy. The emotional energy, which was frozen and trapped upon being touched by the warmth of consciousness, begins to melt, to move, to flow, and finally, to dissolve back into the ecosystem. The light of consciousness is your simplest and most powerful weapon. It is not a force of aggression, but of revelation. You have learned to stop being a warrior who fights in the dark, and to become the guardian who, with his mere presence, illuminates and purifies his inner kingdom. Chapter 5. The Energetic Shield. Strengthening your aura. A house, no matter how tidy it is, will inevitably fill with dust and street noise if its doors and windows are wide open. For your healing to be lasting, for your inner peace to become an impregnable fortress, it is not enough to clean your ecosystem. You must learn to protect it. You must forge your energetic shield. Beyond the skin, the anatomy of your energy. Our materialistic view of the world has taught us that our being ends at the boundaries of our skin. But ancient wisdom and cutting-edge science reveal a deeper truth. You are not a solid object. You are a field of energy. Surrounding your physical body, radiating from each of your cells, exists an electromagnetic field, a vibrational signature that is often known as the aura. This is not a vague, mystical concept. It is a measurable physical phenomenon. As we have seen, your heart emits a field that extends several feet around you. Your brain emits its own waves. Every organ, every tissue vibrates with its own unique frequency. Your aura is, in essence, the atmosphere of your being. It is your psychic immune system. It is the first line of defense of your inner ecosystem against the contagion of mental parasites from the outside world. The quality of this energetic shield determines your level of psychic resilience. A strong, coherent, and vibrant energy field acts as a deflective shield. The low frequencies of fear, complaint, and negativity from other people, upon coming into contact with your high-vibration field, simply bounce off or are neutralized. You are like a ship with a solid, well-maintained hull, able to navigate turbulent waters without chaos penetrating its interior. A weak, incoherent, and porous energy field, on the other hand, makes you vulnerable. It is like a ship with cracks in its hull. The negative energies from the environment seep into your system, drain you and infect you. You become a psychic sponge, absorbing the anxiety and drama of everyone around you. Most of us walk through the world with an energetic shield full of holes, weakened by chronic stress, unresolved emotions, and toxic inner dialogue. And then we wonder why we feel so tired, so irritable, so affected by the moods of others. The inner exorcist not only cleans his house, he repairs and strengthens its walls. He knows that his sovereignty depends on the integrity of his energetic boundaries. Forging the shield, the 3 pillars of psychic strength. Forging an energetic shield is not an act of magic, but of vibrational hygiene. It is based on 3 fundamental pillars that we have already begun to explore, but which we will now focus on from the perspective of protection. Heart coherence as the shield generator. The main generator of your energy field is your heart. The strength and coherence of your shield are a direct reflection of the state of your heart. A heart in a state of incoherence, agitated by fear, anger, or frustration, emits a chaotic and weak field. It is a shield full of gaps. A heart in a state of coherence, vibrating with gratitude, compassion, and love, emits a powerful, ordered, and harmonious field. It is a shield of immense strength and density. Therefore, the fundamental practice for strengthening your aura is the deliberate cultivation of heart coherence. Every time you sit to breathe through your heart and generate an elevated emotion, you are not just healing your biology. You are reinforcing your psychic armor. You are literally charging your shield. The integrity of the solar plexus as the power center. In many esoteric traditions, the solar plexus, the area of your abdomen just above the navel, is considered your center of personal power, your hara. It is the place where your sense of identity, your will, and your ability to set boundaries reside. A weak and de-energized solar plexus is like an open door in your defenses. It makes you susceptible to manipulation, to the influence of others, and to absorbing their problems as if they were your own. Strengthening your solar plexus is strengthening your sovereignty. It is done through the cultivation of self-esteem and self-confidence. Every time you make a decision that honors your own truth, every time you set a healthy boundary, every time you act with courage that is born from your center, you are strengthening this power center. You are closing the door to psychic invasion. The purity of intention as shield programming. Finally, your shield can be programmed. Your conscious intention is what gives your energy field its operating instructions. If your unconscious intention is to be needed or to save others, you will program your field to be permeable, to absorb the pain of others as a way of feeling valuable. To create a protective shield, your intention must be one of loving sovereignty. It is the intention to be a source of light and peace, but without allowing your own well-being to be compromised. It is the understanding that you cannot serve anyone from a place of energetic exhaustion. Your first responsibility is to maintain the integrity of your own field. We have understood that our energy field is our psychic immune system, and that its strength depends on the coherence of our heart, the power of our center, and the clarity of our intention. But how does this understanding translate into a daily protocol? How do you forge and maintain this shield in the heat of daily life? The initiate into the secrets of the mind does not leave his protection to chance. He becomes the blacksmith of his own armor, the guardian of his own sanctuary. The first practice, the forging of the shield, the morning ritual. The psychic guardian does not wait to be attacked. He forges his armor every morning in the stillness of his inner sanctuary as part of his sunrise ritual, the generation of the metal. The practice begins with the heart. You sit in silence, and as you have already learned, you practice heart coherence. You breathe through your center, generating an elevated emotion of gratitude, appreciation, or compassion. You feel that warm and expansive energy growing in your chest. This coherent feeling is not just an emotion. It is the liquid metal, the primordial substance with which you will build your armor. The formation of the shield. Now you use your imagination, the creator's pen. While maintaining your breath and the coherent feeling, you visualize this energy as a sphere of liquid, brilliant light in your chest. With each inhalation, you feel how this sphere absorbs more energy from the universal field. With each exhalation, you see and feel how this sphere expands, growing beyond the boundaries of your body. The expansion. You expand it forward, backward to the sides, up and down until you are completely enveloped, sitting in the center of a golden or white orb of light, an arm's length away in all directions. You take a moment to feel the reality of this shield. You feel its warmth, its strength, its protection. You have forged your armor. The second practice, the programming of the shield, the intelligent filter. A shield without instructions is just a passive barrier. The psychic guardian programs it with his intention, turning it into an intelligent filter. While holding the visualization of your light shield, you give it its orders. With the authority of your sovereignty, you declare, silently or out loud, the laws of your energetic kingdom. This shield is a divine filter. It is completely permeable to all forms of love, joy, wisdom, abundance, and inspiration. And it is completely impermeable and reflective of all forms of fear, judgment, negativity, criticism, and parasitic energy. Everything that is not aligned with my highest good is neutralized upon contact with this light and returned to its source, transmuted into love. With this decree, you have turned your aura into an intelligent guardian that knows what to let in and what to keep out. The third practice, the art of energetic cleansing, the nightly ritual. The guardian knows that, even with the best of shields after a day in the world, it is necessary to clean the dust and mud from the road. His practice is that of the nightly energetic cleansing, to ensure he does not carry the energies of the day into his sleep state. He uses several techniques depending on what his intuition tells him. The light shower. In his nightly meditation, or even in the physical shower, he visualizes a waterfall of white, crystalline light falling from above. He feels how this liquid light flows over and through his energy field, washing and dissolving any dense energy, any worries, any unwanted energetic ties he has accumulated during the day. He sees how these dark energies go down a drain to the center of the earth to be transmuted. Salt baths. The initiate honors ancient wisdom. He knows that salt is a powerful physical and energetic purifier. Periodically, he immerses himself in a bath with sea salt or Epsom salts, with the intention that the water will absorb and neutralize any discordant energy from his field. Cutting ties. If he has had a particularly draining interaction with a person, he performs tie cutting. In his imagination, he visualizes the energetic cords or ties that connect him to that person. He gives thanks for the lesson the interaction has brought him. And then, with an imaginary sword of light, he cuts those ties, declaring, "I return your energy to you with love, and I reclaim mine completely. I am free, you are free. Your energetic shield is your personal temple, your mobile sanctuary. You have learned to forge it with the coherence of your heart, to program it with the clarity of your intention, and to purify it with the light of your consciousness. You are no longer a sponge at the mercy of the world's psychic tides. You are a fortress of peace, a beacon of sovereign light." Chapter 6. The Sword of the Word. The Power of Decree. At the heart of almost all the great mystical and world creation traditions lies a profound truth. The universe was created through a sound, a vibration, a word. In the beginning was the Word, the Gospel of John tells us. We have relegated this knowledge to myth, without realizing that it is an operations manual. The spoken word is not a simple vehicle for communication. It is a force. It is the act that takes the formless energy of a thought and a feeling and crystallizes it into an audible vibration, into a command that resonates in the fabric of the universe. An affirmation or a decree is not a wish. It is not a plea. It is a declaration of sovereignty. It is the act of using your voice as a sword to cut through the fog of illusion, to sever the ties that bind you to mental parasites, and to define with unshakable clarity the new law of your kingdom. A shield is passive. It protects. A sword is active. It defines. A shield repels energy. A sword cuts and transmutes it. A shield keeps you safe. A sword makes you free. The alchemical properties of the word, why it works. The power of decree is not a superstition. It operates through three precise mechanisms: the power of vibration, the disruptive resonance. Mental parasites are energetic structures. Our thought of self-criticism, for example, has a specific vibrational signature. It is chaotic, dissonant, and of low frequency. It thrives in an environment of chaos. The decree of power, pronounced with conviction and feeling like I am the embodiment of divine perfection, is a sound wave of high, coherent and ordered frequency. Imagine what happens when an opera singer finds the resonant note of a crystal glass. The coherent, powerful vibration of her voice overloads the structure of the glass until it shatters. In the same way, when you introduce a vibration of power and love into your mental ecosystem, the chaotic, low-frequency structure of the parasitic thought cannot withstand it. Your decree does not argue with the parasite. It disintegrates it at a vibrational level. It imposes a new harmonic order that makes dissonance unsustainable. The power of command, the subconscious servant. Your subconscious mind is the genie in the bottle. It is a force of unimaginable power, but it is completely literal and has no will of its own. It follows the orders of its master, your conscious mind. The problem is that for years, we have been giving it contradictory and weak orders. Our thoughts of doubt and fear are wavering whispers that the genie barely registers. A spoken decree, on the other hand, is a clear command, and the authority of that command does not reside in volume, but in conviction. When you pronounce your decree with the certainty of a sovereign, as if you were declaring a law that is already a fact, your subconscious receives it as a direct and irrefutable order. Your own voice is the voice of greatest authority for your subconscious. By using it deliberately, you are hypnotizing yourself. You are reprogramming the system from the control panel. The power of definition, drawing the boundary. Finally, parasites thrive in ambiguity, in the fog of unconsciousness. The act of naming a parasite and declaring a new truth is an act of definition. It is drawing a line in the sand. When faced with an anxiety attack, you declare aloud, I reject this fear parasite. I choose peace. I am peace. You are doing something fundamental. You are defining the territory of your mind as a zone of peace and declaring that anxiety is an invading, illegal force. This act of conscious definition removes the parasite's camouflage. It can no longer pretend it is you. You have exposed it. And once exposed, its power drastically diminishes. The first sword, the decree of banishment. This is your quick action weapon for direct combat. It is what you use the moment you realize you are under attack from a parasitic thought. Its function is to interrupt the pattern and reclaim your sovereignty. The decree of banishment is short, sharp, and pronounced with unshakable authority. Identify. The first step is to use the light of consciousness to identify the invader. You feel the pang of self-criticism. Command, in that instant, without hesitation, you draw your sword. You say mentally or in a whisper, with all the force of your being, "Out!" or "I cancel," or a more elaborate phrase like, "I reject this parasitic thought. It has no power over me. I will not give it my energy." Declare sovereignty. Immediately after the banishment, you declare the new law. I am the only power in my mind. I choose peace. This is not an act of struggle. It is an act of authority. You are not arguing with the parasite. You are informing it as the sovereign of your kingdom that it is an intruder and must leave. At first, the parasite, accustomed to ruling, may resist. But with every decree of banishment you pronounce with conviction, your own authority strengthens and its power weakens. The second sword, the power affirmation. If the decree of banishment is for defense, the power affirmation is for proactive offense. You don't wait for the parasite to attack. You take the initiative. It is the act of filling your mental ecosystem with a vibration so high and potent that the darkness of the parasites cannot survive in it. The power affirmation is a declaration of your divine identity. It is the conscious use of I am. The initiate chooses his power affirmation based on the main parasite he wishes to eradicate, for the parasite of unworthiness, the critic. His affirmation is, "I am the embodiment of divine perfection. My worth is intrinsic and inexhaustible." For the parasite of fear, worry, his affirmation is, "I am one with the infinite intelligence of the universe. I am always guided, protected, and safe." For the parasite of scarcity, complaint, his affirmation is, "I am a magnet for abundance. My supply is infinite, and all my needs are covered now with a great surplus." The initiate does not repeat these phrases mechanically. He turns them into his daily ritual. He practices them in the mirror, writes them in his journal, and repeats them like a lullaby before sleeping. Each repetition is an act of forging, strengthening the light of his truth until it becomes so bright that there is no shadow left for the parasites to hide in. The third sword, the alchemical blessing. This is the most subtle and, ultimately, the most powerful sword. It is the weapon that does not destroy the enemy, but transmutes it. It is the practice of blessing. When you are faced with a parasitic energy, whether internal or external, your instinctive reaction is one of resistance and judgment. This reaction, though understandable, keeps you tied to the same low frequency as the parasite. The blessing is an act of alchemy that breaks this cycle. It is the act of deliberately choosing to respond to a low frequency with a high frequency. When the parasite of self-criticism attacks, instead of hating it, you bless it. You say inwardly, "I bless this part of me that tries to protect me through criticism. I release it with love." When you encounter a person who is emitting a strong negative energy, instead of judging them or absorbing their poison, you bless them in silence. "I bless your being. I send you peace." This act of blessing is not for the other person. It is for you. It instantly takes you out of the ego's battlefield and elevates you to a higher plane of consciousness. The energy of the blessing is a vibration of unconditional love, and on that frequency, the parasites of judgment and fear cannot survive. They dissolve. You have forged your arsenal. You have the decree of banishment for defense, the power affirmation for offense, and the alchemical blessing for transmutation. You are no longer a helpless host. You are the armed guardian of your own kingdom. Chapter 7. The Energetic Fast Starving the Parasite. Welcome to the most potent purification ritual. Welcome to the energetic fast. To starve a parasite, we must first understand what it eats. The mental parasite does not feed on physical food. Its nourishment is much more subtle, and it is something we generously provide every day without realizing it. The food of mental parasites is low-vibration emotional energy. A parasite is a thought structure that, by itself, has no energy. To survive, it must provoke an emotional reaction in you, its host. That emotion generates a biochemical cascade in your body, a surge of energy. And it is from that energy that the parasite feeds to strengthen itself and perpetuate its existence. This is the cycle of addiction. A parasitic thought appears. You're not good enough. This thought triggers a familiar emotion, shame, sadness. You identify with the emotion, I'm a failure. The emotion releases a powerful chemistry in your body, cortisol, adrenaline. The parasite feeds on this surge of energy, strengthening itself and anchoring itself more deeply in your neurology, ensuring the cycle repeats. Every time you react, every time you emotionally latch onto a negative thought, you are serving a feast to your own jailer. The energetic fast is the act of closing the kitchen, the two food groups of the parasite. The parasite feeds from two main sources: the buffet we prepare for it internally and the supermarket we find externally. The internal buffet, your emotional reactions. This is its primary and most direct food source. The parasite's favorite dishes are survival emotions, worry, the constant drip. Worry is the parasite's slow-cook meal. It's not an energy explosion, but a constant drip of low-intensity fear. By keeping you in a state of what if, you are providing a constant energy supply that keeps it alive and healthy. Day after day, anger and resentment, the high-energy feast. These are the most caloric and addictive meals. An outburst of anger, or the act of ruminating on an old grudge, generates a massive surge of adrenaline and cortisol. For the drama and victim parasites, this is a luxury banquet. It's a drug so potent that both you and the parasite become addicted to it. Guilt and shame, the paralyzing comfort food. These are the comfort foods of the critic parasite. They are implosive emotions. They not only provide it with energy, but also leave you in a state of paralysis of contraction, ensuring you won't take any action that could threaten the parasite's existence. We have become addicted to the chemistry of these emotions. We believe we are simply being emotional, but in reality we are participating in a symbiotic and destructive feeding ritual. The external supermarket, social and media contagion. We don't just produce food for our parasites, we also import it from the outside. The modern world is a vast supermarket of low-vibration energy. The news aisle, fast food for fear. The 24-hour news cycle is the fear parasite's favorite fast food chain. Players cheap, always available and scientifically designed to be addictive. Every alarmist headline, every crisis story is a greasy burger of fear you consume and with which you feed your infection. The gossip and complaint aisle, the community banquet. Complaining with others about a common problem is like organizing a banquet for your parasites. In this ceremony, you not only feed your own parasite with your energy of frustration, but also feed on the energy of others, and they on yours. It is a negativity party where all the parasites emerge strengthened. The social media buffet. Social media is the all-you-can-eat buffet for parasites. They offer every dish: envy, from seeing others' edited lives; comparison, the unworthiness parasite feasts; indignation, the drama parasite gets addicted to political or social conflict; and the search for validation, the anxiety of waiting for a like. The first protocol, the fast of internal reaction. The initiate knows that the parasite's biggest buffet is his own reaction. His first and most powerful practice is to close this buffet. It is the art of conscious non-reaction. When a parasitic thought appears and triggers a negative emotion, instead of being hijacked by it, you apply the light of consciousness. Observe the emotion as energy. You feel the surge of anger but refuse to tell the story of "this is so unfair." You simply observe the heat in your chest, the tension in your hands. You feel the emotion as pure energy in your body, without a narrative. Breathe into the sensation. You bring your breath to the part of the body where the sensation is most intense. In doing this, you are bathing the contracted energy with consciousness and oxygen, allowing it to dissolve. Refuse the story. Most importantly, you refuse to feed the emotion with more thoughts. You observe the voice of the critic or the victim as if it were a child having a tantrum, without taking its demands seriously. By refusing to provide the narrative, you cut off the fuel supply to the emotion. The fire without more wood begins to go out. The parasite without its nourishment begins to weaken. The second protocol, the fast of external consumption. Once you have started to close the inner buffet, the psychic guardian proceeds to close the external supermarket. His practice is that of the radical information diet. The news fast. The initiate commits to a news fast for a set period, a day, a weekend, without consuming any news or social media. This act of detoxification allows his nervous system to calm down and makes him hyper-aware of how much negativity he was consuming by default. The complaint fast. He practices the 24-hour complaint fast. He makes a sacred vow not to verbalize a single complaint for an entire day. This exercise makes him hyper-aware of how often his mind generates negativity by default and how social conversations often revolve around this parasitic feeding ritual. The digital curfew. He establishes clear boundaries with technology. He implements a digital curfew, turning off all screens at least an hour before bed. And, crucially, he refuses to start his day in the distraction supermarket. He does not touch his phone during the first hour of the morning, reclaiming that time to feed his own soul, not the world's parasites. The third protocol, filling the void with soul food. A fast is not just about what you remove. It is about what you put in its place. Nature abhors a vacuum. If you leave an empty space in your consciousness, the parasite, in its desperation, will try to return with more force. Therefore, the final part of the fast is to fill that newly created space with soul food, with high-vibration energy in which parasites cannot survive. You replace the time you spent watching the news with reading an inspiring book. You replace the social media scroll with a walk in nature. You replace the complaining conversation with a friend with a conversation about dreams, possibilities, and gratitude. You replace the noise with music that elevates your spirit. You are consciously changing your mind's diet. You are creating an inner ecosystem so nourishing, so high vibration, that it becomes toxic to the invasive species of negativity. The energetic fast is not an act of deprivation. It is an act of sovereignty. It is the declaration that you and only you decide what energy enters and is cultivated in the ecosystem of your mind. By cutting off the supply lines, the parasite weakens. Its voice becomes a whisper. Its grip loosens. You have created the space for the native flora of your soul to at last grow back. Chapter 8. Alchemical Transmutation. The counterspell, a fundamental law of the universe, is that energy is not created or destroyed. It is only transformed. Fighting a negative energy is a mistake, because struggle is in itself a low-vibration energy that only strengthens the adversary. The alchemist does not fight the lead. He subjects it to a process, applies fire and certain catalysts, and transmutes it into gold. In the same way, the psychic exorcist at his highest level does not fight the energy of fear or anger. He learns to take that very energy and raise its frequency, to transmute it into its divine opposite. A counterspell is not a simple positive affirmation. It is an alchemical act. It is the deliberate application of a high-vibration emotion to neutralize and transform a low-vibration emotion. It is the art of responding to dissonance with harmony, the anatomy of the counterspell. For a counterspell to be effective, it must have a vibrational power superior to the spell it is trying to transmute. The power of light must be greater than that of the shadow it faces. There are three great alchemical agents, three emotions of such a high frequency that no mental parasite can survive their prolonged contact. Gratitude, the universal solvent. Gratitude is, perhaps, the most potent and accessible alchemical agent. It is the universal solvent of negativity, the physics of gratitude. Gratitude generates a state of heart coherence. It emits a harmonious, high-frequency electromagnetic signal. Fear, anger, or sadness, on the other hand, are incoherent, low-frequency signals. When you deliberately introduce the frequency of gratitude into your field, its coherent wave begins to entrain and reorganize the chaotic wave of the negative emotion. Harmony, by law, always has more organizing power than chaos. The psychology of gratitude. It is impossible to feel genuine gratitude and a victim emotion at the same time. They are mutually exclusive states of consciousness. Gratitude instantly pulls you out of lack mode, focused on what you are missing or what has been done to you, and transports you to abundance mode, focused on what you do have and what you have learned. Imagine you are faced with the parasite of resentment towards a person who hurt you in the past. Resentment is a poison you drink yourself. To transmute it, the alchemist does not try to forgive with force. He starts with gratitude, In his meditation, he deliberately looks for a single small gift that painful experience brought him. Maybe it taught him to be stronger. Maybe it taught him to set boundaries. Maybe it showed him a part of himself that needed healing. And he focuses with all the intensity of his being on gratitude for that lesson. Thank you for this experience, because through it I learned to value my own strength. In doing this, he is not forgiving the other's action. He is transmuting the meaning of the experience in his own mind. He is extracting the gold from the lead, and the parasite of resentment, bathed in this high frequency of gratitude, begins to dissolve. Love and compassion, the purifying fire. If gratitude is the solvent, unconditional love and compassion are the purifying fire. They are the highest frequency in the universe. The parasites of self-criticism and judgment, both toward oneself and others, feed on the energy of separation, the idea that I am good and you are bad, or vice versa. Love and compassion are the energy of unity. They dissolve the illusion of separation. When you are faced with the parasite of judgment toward another person, the practice of the counterspell is that of radical compassion. Instead of focusing on the person's hurtful action, you strive to see the wound behind their action. You recognize that their toxic behavior is likely the result of their own psychic infection, of their own pain. In doing this, your energy changes from judgment, separation to compassion, unity. This does not mean you should tolerate their behavior. It means you stop being energetically hooked on it, and the parasite of judgment, deprived of its food, loses its power over you. Joy and bliss, the shadow repellent. Finally, joy is the simplest and most joyful counterspell. Mental parasites are incredibly serious and dramatic energetic entities. They cannot survive in an atmosphere of lightness and play. Joy is the shadow repellent par excellence. When you feel attacked by the worry parasite, which presents you with a horror movie about your future, one of the most potent practices is to deliberately change your state through joy. You put on your favorite song and dance around the room. You watch a comedy that makes you laugh out loud. You call a friend who always lifts your spirits. This is not an act of avoidance. It is an act of vibrational warfare. You are deliberately choosing to flood your system with a frequency so high that the low frequency of worry cannot coexist with it. The first practice, the ritual of reframing. The parasite feeds on your interpretation of an event. The situation itself is neutral. It is the story you tell yourself about it that gives the parasite its power. Therefore, the first act of alchemy is to change the story. It is the practice of conscious reframing. When you are faced with a negative situation, a layoff, criticism, a failure, the victim parasite immediately begins to narrate its story of injustice and hopelessness. The alchemist does not believe that story. He pauses, and he asks himself the most powerful question in the universe. What is the hidden gift here? Or how is this serving my growth and my highest good, even if I can't see it now? This is not a superficial positive thinking question. It is a sincere search for the gold in the lead. Perhaps the gift of the layoff is the opportunity to, at last, start your own business. Perhaps the gift of the criticism is the honest feedback you needed to perfect your art. Perhaps the gift of the failure is the lesson in humility that will save you from a much bigger mistake in the future. By actively seeking the gift, you are changing the framework of the experience. You are withdrawing your energy from the victim's story and beginning to invest it in a story of power and growth. You have prepared the ground for transmutation. The second practice, the incantation of gratitude. With the new framework established, the alchemist now pronounces the most powerful counterspell. He doesn't just think gratitude, he decrees it. It is the practice of the incantation of gratitude. You take the situation that is causing you pain, and aloud, or in the silence of your mind, you declare your gratitude for the lesson. Although my ego feels pain from this situation, my soul recognizes the gift. I am grateful for the strength this experience is forging in me. I am grateful for the clarity it is bringing me. I thank this opportunity to practice detachment and trust in a higher plan. Thank you for this lesson. This verbal act is a short circuit for the parasite. It cannot feed on gratitude. The high frequency of your words neutralizes the low frequency of fear or resentment. You have changed the biochemistry of your body and the energetic signature of the situation. The third practice, the ray of compassion. When the parasite manifests through conflict with another person, the alchemist uses the ray of compassion, instead of getting caught in the loop of anger and judgment toward the other person, which creates a toxic energetic tie and feeds the parasites of both sides. The initiate performs an act of liberation. He looks at the image of the person who has hurt him in his mind, and instead of projecting more anger, he projects the ray of healing. He uses an ancient formula of reconciliation, not for the other, but for himself. He says from his heart, "I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. I'm sorry for my part of the responsibility in this dance of conflict. Please forgive me for any judgment I have held against you. I love you," as an expression of the fundamental unity we share as beings of consciousness. Thank you for the lesson this interaction has brought me. This is not a statement of blame. You say this to dissolve the energetic knot that binds you. You are cleansing your own field of the energy of conflict. It is the highest act of alchemy, to take the poison of interpersonal conflict and transmute it into the medicine of inner peace. Alchemical transmutation is the art of mastery. It is the recognition that you are not a victim of energy, but its director. You have the power to take the lead of suffering and turn it into the gold of wisdom. You have learned not only to defend yourself from the parasite, but to use its own energy against it, transmuting it into light. Chapter 9. The Fire of Forgiveness. Cutting the old ties. Most of us do not live in the present. We live as walking museums of our old wounds. And every unhealed wound, every act of unforgiveness, is more than just a painful memory. It is an energetic tie, an invisible psychic chain that keeps you bound to the person, the event, and the vibration of your past. These ties are the conduits, the pipelines through which yesterday's toxic energy continues to drain the vitality of your today. To achieve total liberation, it is not enough to transmute the energy. You must cut the source of the infection. You must enter the alchemist's workshop and wield the most feared and at the same time most liberating tool that exists. You must light the fire of forgiveness. The invisible chains, the anatomy of unforgiveness. Forget everything that conventional morality has taught you about forgiveness. Forgiveness, in the context of psychic eradication, is not an act of kindness toward the person who hurt you. It is not about condoning their behavior or reconciling with them. Forgiveness is the most radical and pragmatic act of sovereign liberation. It is the recognition that resentment, grudges, and guilt are not a punishment for the other person. They are a poison that you are drinking yourself, day after day. They are the chains that you yourself hold. Resentment, the chain to the other. When someone hurts us, our mind creates a story. In that story, we are the victim and the other person is the villain. And we believe that the villain owes us something, an apology, a repair, a punishment. This sense of debt is the core of resentment. It is an energetic contract we establish, in which we refuse to feel at peace until the other person pays their debt. The problem is that often the other person never pays. Or they can't, or they don't want to, or they are not even aware of the harm they have caused. And while we wait for that payment that never comes, we are the ones who remain in the prison of our own bitterness. This chain is not a metaphor, it is a real energetic tie. By holding a person in the focus of your resentment, you are constantly directing your precious vital energy toward them. And at the same time, you maintain an open channel through which that person's energy, or the energy of the memory of that person, can continue to influence you. You are literally chained to your torturer, and the only one who has the key to release the shackle is you. Guilt, the chain to yourself. The other side of the coin is guilt, resentment directed inward. It is the belief that we have made an unforgivable mistake, that we have violated our own moral code, and that therefore we deserve to be punished. Guilt is a particularly cunning parasite. It masquerades as conscience or responsibility, but true responsibility inspires repair and change. Guilt, on the other hand, inspires self-punishment and paralysis. When you cling to guilt, you are chaining yourself to a past version of yourself. You are, in essence, declaring, "Because of this mistake I made in the past, I am not worthy of happiness, success, or love in the present." You become your own judge, jury, and executioner, condemned to a lifelong sentence of self-sabotage. Every time an opportunity for joy appears, The voice of the guilt parasite whispers, "You don't deserve it. Remember what you did." And you obediently sabotage the opportunity to continue serving your sentence. Both guilt and resentment are chains that tie us to a past that no longer exists, draining the energy we need to build a new future. Cutting these ties is a non-negotiable act of psychic hygiene. The ego's false logic. Why do we cling to the chains? If unforgiveness is so obviously destructive, why do we cling to it so tenaciously? Because it offers the ego two very seductive rewards, an identity and an illusion of control. The identity of the righteous victim. As we have seen, the ego loves the victim story. When we are in a state of resentment, our story is clear and powerful. We are the good guys, the innocent, the hurt, and the other person is the bad guy, the guilty one. This narrative, although painful, gives us a strange sense of security and moral superiority. It gives us the right to complain, to lament, and to receive sympathy. Clinging to resentment can become the cornerstone of a person's personality. And letting it go, forgiving, then feels like a death, like the loss of who I am. The illusion of control. The ego mistakenly believes that by keeping a grudge alive, it is punishing the other person and maintaining a form of control over them. It believes that if it forgives, it is letting the other person get away with it. It is a form of primitive justice. In the same way, clinging to guilt gives the ego an illusion of control over its own mistakes. If I punish myself enough, it thinks, maybe I can atone for my sin and avoid making the same mistake in the future. These are the lies the ego whispers to keep us chained. The awakening of the inner exorcist is to recognize these lies for what they are and choose freedom over justification. Chapter 10. The Information Diet, Choosing Your Mental Nutrients. You are what you consume, the nutrition of the mind. Imagine your mind is a sacred garden. Every day you have the option of watering that garden with pure water and nourishing it with the best compost. Or you can choose to water it with wastewater and fertilize it with toxic junk. Most of us unconsciously have been choosing the second option. We live in an informational environment that is the equivalent of a 24-hour fast food restaurant. We are constantly grazing at a buffet of cheap processed information designed to be hyper-palatable, addictive, but that lacks any nutritional value for our soul. And then we wonder why our mental garden is full of the weeds of anxiety, fear, and confusion. The initiate in the secrets of the mind understands that mental sovereignty begins with conscious consumption. He becomes the nutritionist of his own soul, and to do so he must first learn to identify the three great poisons of the modern information diet, the three great toxins of the modern diet. 1. Junk food. News, the fear addiction. The first and most potent of the toxins is the 24-hour news cycle. It is not a source of information. It is a fast food chain for the fear parasite. Its engineering, news, especially in the digital age, is not designed to inform you, but to capture and hold your attention. And algorithms and editors have discovered that nothing captures the attention of the primitive brain more effectively than fear. Fear activates our survival response and forces us to pay attention. Its ingredients, therefore, the news menu is composed almost exclusively of the most toxic ingredients: crises, scandals, violence, disasters, and future threats. A story about an act of kindness is a boring salad. A story about a crime or a war is a double hamburger with extra cortisol. Its effect, constantly feeding on this information diet, has a devastating effect. It keeps you in a state of low-grade stress, flooding your body with hormones that suppress your immune system and shut down your creative centers. And what's worse, it installs in your subconscious the belief that the world is a dangerous place, a belief that keeps you in a state of contraction and powerlessness. Empty calorie. Entertainment, the anesthetic of the soul. The second toxin is the mass consumption of empty calorie entertainment. The incessant stream of TV series, short videos, and endless scrolling on social media. Not all entertainment is toxic, but when it is consumed compulsively and unconsciously, it does not act as a source of rest or inspiration. It acts as an anesthetic. Its true function is to numb the echo of the soul, that holy dissatisfaction that calls us to grow. It is a sophisticated way of avoiding silence, of avoiding an encounter with ourselves. Feeding on these empty calories does not nourish you. It simply fills you up. It occupies the space and time you could be investing in your own growth, in your art, in your relationships, in the construction of your new reality. It is the preferred food of the parasite of apathy and procrastination. Poisoned social sources, the comparison diet. Finally, the third toxin is what we consume through many of our social interactions, especially on digital platforms. Social media, in its current design, is a buffet that serves the two favorite dishes of the most destructive parasites. The comparison plate. They feed you a constant stream of others' carefully edited and filtered lives. Their successes, their vacations, their perfect bodies. And by consuming these images, you inevitably compare them with the raw, unedited reality of your own life. This is the main food of the unworthiness parasite. It keeps you in a state of not being enough. The indignation plate. The algorithms are designed to show you content that polarizes and angers you, because indignation is the emotion that generates the most engagement. They feed you political conflicts, ideological debates, and stories that make you feel a moral superiority over an other side. This is the feast of the drama and separation parasite. The first practice, the detox protocol. Before you can nourish a system, you must first clean it. The initiate knows that to regain the sensitivity of his psychic palate, he must first fast from artificial and addictive flavors. The news fast. The practice begins with a news fast. You commit to spending a set period of time, 3 days a week, without consuming any news. 0. No television, no newspapers, no internet portals, no social media. At first, the fear parasite deprived of its fast food will scream. You will feel FOMO, the fear of missing out on something important. But if you persist, you will notice something miraculous. Your nervous system will begin to calm down. The background anxiety will decrease, and you will realize that 99% of the world's urgent news has no real impact on your life, but it does have a devastating impact on your peace. The digital Sabbath. The initiate institutes the digital Sabbath. He chooses 1 day a week, for at least a few hours, in which he completely disconnects from all screens. It is a day to allow his mind to wander, to get bored, to connect with the physical world, with nature, with the people in front of him. It is a weekly reset for his dopamine system. The second practice, the art of conscious curation. After detoxification, the guardian does not return to unconscious consumption. He becomes a curator of his information flow, a gourmet of wisdom. His practice is that of the guardian's question. Before consuming any piece of content, a book, a video, a conversation, he asks himself the question, is this food going to nourish my soul or feed my parasites? He learns to read the energetic ingredients of the content. Is it designed to empower him or to make him angry? Does it offer wisdom or just opinion? Does it leave him feeling expansive or contracted? He begins to create a deliberate menu of mental nutrients. Instead of aimlessly browsing, he actively seeks out the thinkers, writers, artists, and creators who inspire him. He subscribes to their channels, buys their books, and supports their work. He transforms his digital environment from a junk food supermarket to an organic food store for the soul. The third practice, the high-vibration diet. It is not enough to avoid poison. You must actively consume the antidote. The final practice of the psychic nutritionist is to feast on high-vibration foods. Nature. The guardian knows that nature is the ultimate superfood for the mind. Spending time in nature is not a luxury. It is a necessity. It is an act of downloading the planet's coherence and harmony directly into his own energy field. Silence. Silence is the nutrient of non-consumption. It is the space that allows the mind to digest the information it has received, connect the dots, and, most importantly, listen to the voice of its own intuition. Beauty. The initiate becomes a beauty hunter. He actively seeks out art, music, architecture, and poetry that lift his spirit. He knows that beauty is the frequency of divinity, and he bathes in it as an act of purification. Meaningful connection. Finally, the most powerful nutrient of all is authentic human connection. The guardian cultivates deep, vulnerable, and present conversations. He knows that a sincere dialogue with a kindred spirit can nourish him more than 1,000 hours of empty entertainment. Your mind is no longer a landfill for the toxic junk of the world. It has become a garden temple, a sacred space you nurture with the same consciousness with which a gourmet chooses his ingredients. Chapter 11. Social Hygiene. Choosing your tribe. The human being is a social being and therefore energetically porous. We are in a constant exchange of vibrational information with those who populate our world. Their fears, their joys, their beliefs, and their mental parasites are constantly broadcasting signals into the psychic ocean we share. To complete your purification and maintain your sovereignty, you must become a master of social hygiene, the law of social resonance. There is a famous law of success that says, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. This is not a simple sociological observation. It is a law of energetic physics. Every person in your life is a vibrating tuning fork. If you surround yourself with 5 people who vibrate at the frequency of complaint, scarcity, and victimhood, your own instrument, by the law of resonance, will inevitably begin to vibrate at that same dissonant frequency. Their chaos will become your chaos. If, on the contrary, you surround yourself with 5 people who vibrate at the frequency of possibility, gratitude, and growth, your own being will naturally feel elevated and tuned to that harmony. Their coherence will become your coherence. You cannot expect to maintain a pristine mental ecosystem if you are voluntarily swimming in a swamp of negativity. The choice of your tribe, of your inner circle, is not a social decision. It is one of the most important psychic hygiene decisions you will make in your life. The anatomy of the energy vampire. To be able to choose your tribe wisely, you must first learn to recognize those who, consciously or unconsciously, act as vectors of psychic infection. They are the so-called energy vampires. This term is not meant to demonize. Most energy vampires are not evil people. They are deeply wounded people, disconnected from their own source of inner power. And like a black hole, they need to absorb energy from others to be able to feel something. Their parasitic behavior is not born of malice but of desperation. There are 3 main archetypes: the chronic victim, the sympathy thief. This is the most common type. Their main parasite is that of powerlessness, and it feeds on the sympathy and pity of others. Their conversation is an endless monologue about their problems, injustices, and misfortunes. They do not seek solutions. They seek an audience. Every time you say poor you or feel pity for them, you are giving them your vital energy. An interaction with the chronic victim leaves you feeling exhausted, heavy, and often inexplicably sad. You have been used as an emotional service station, and you have been left with an empty tank. 2. The interrogator, the confidence thief. This vampire is more subtle and often masquerades as an honest friend or a critical thinker. Their parasite is that of superiority, and it feeds on your insecurity. Their method is constant questioning. They criticize your dreams, find flaws in your plans, and warn you of all possible dangers. Are you sure you can do that? Isn't it too risky? Most people fail at that. Their goal is not to help you, but to put you on the defensive. By forcing you to justify and doubt yourself, they make you feel small and insecure, which allows them to feel big and wise. A conversation with the interrogator leaves you feeling doubtful, anxious, and with less confidence than you had when you started. The king or queen of drama, the intensity thief. This type of vampire is addicted to intensity. Their parasite does not feed on a specific emotion, but on the energy of chaos. They thrive on conflict, gossip, and crisis. If there is no drama in their life, they will create it. They will call you to tell you about the latest outrage, to involve you in a conflict with another person, to make a mountain out of a molehill. A conversation with the drama king leaves you feeling agitated, overstimulated, and pulled into a whirlwind of chaotic energy. They have used your nervous system as their personal amusement park. The first practice, the establishment of the energetic boundary. The initiate in the art of the mind does not build walls of stone, but boundaries of consciousness. His practice is that of the shield of intention, the shield of compassion. When you face a person who operates from negativity, your first instinct may be to judge or defend yourself. Both are low-vibration reactions that hook you into the drama. The guardian instead uses the shield of compassion. It is not pity. It is the detached recognition that this person is suffering, that they are the host of a parasite that is devouring them. By seeing their behavior not as a personal attack, but as a symptom of their own infection, you detach yourself emotionally. This compassion is a non-resistant shield. Negativity, not finding a wall to hit, often dissolves. The grey rock technique. When you face a drama addict or a chronic victim who is desperately seeking your energy, the most effective practice is to become a grey rock. You become energetically boring. You do not offer the sympathy they long for. You do not latch on to their story of indignation. You respond with short, neutral, and emotionally detached phrases. I understand. I see. I hope it gets resolved. The parasite, not finding the nourishment of your emotional reaction, will get bored and look for another, more compliant host. Utters the decree of sovereignty. Before entering an interaction that you know may be draining, you declare internally, my energy is mine. I am sovereign of my field. I absorb nothing that is not for my highest good. I am sealed in my own light. The second practice, the social audit. The psychic guardian does not choose his tribe randomly. He performs an honest and often painful audit of his current relationships. The practice is the energetic inventory. You take your journal, and you make a list of the 10 or 15 people with whom you share the most time and intimacy. And next to each name, you answer a simple and brutally honest question. After interacting with this person, how do I feel? Do I feel more energized, inspired, and expansive? Or do I feel more drained, heavy, and contracted? Be radically honest. Do not base it on shoulds. They're my family, I should feel good. Base it on the truth of your body. At the end of this exercise, you will have a clear map of your social ecosystem. You will clearly see who the radiators are that amplify your light and who the drains are that diminish it. The third practice, the conscious curation of the tribe. With the map of your social ecosystem in hand, you begin the work of the gardener. Nourish the radiators. The first and most joyful step is to consciously invest more time and quality energy in the relationships that nourish you. You call that friend who always makes you laugh. You propose a coffee to that colleague who inspires you. You prioritize the people who are a vibrational yes in your life. Manage the drains, the art of loving distance. This is the hardest part. With the people you have identified as drains, the practice is that of loving distance. This does not mean cutting off the relationship with anger or drama. It means with self-love, starting to reduce the time of exposure and the depth of the interaction. You respond to messages a little later. You limit phone conversations to 10 minutes. You say no kindly to invitations that you know will leave you exhausted. It is not an act of punishment toward them. It is an act of self-preservation for you. Seek your new tribe. Finally, the guardian knows that to raise his frequency, he must seek out tuning forks that already vibrate at the note he wishes to reach. He actively looks for mentors, groups, and communities that inspire and challenge him to grow. He signs up for that class, goes to that conference, joins that online group. He knows that his new tribe will not knock on his door. He must have the courage to go out and find it. Your social circle is no longer an accident of geography or history. It has become your chosen sanctuary, your council of sages, the ecosystem that nurtures your growth. Chapter 12. The Physical Sanctuary. The cleansing of your environment. The ancient Hermetic principle, as it is within, so it is without, does not only apply to the grand circumstances of your life, it applies with relentless precision to the state of your own home. Your house, your office, your car, they are not simply collections of inanimate objects. They are an extension of your own mind. They are the crystallization in the physical world of your inner state. Your environment is the most honest echo of your inner dialogue. A messy, chaotic house is the reflection of a messy, chaotic mind. External disorder reinforces and perpetuates internal disorder. A space filled with broken or unused objects is the reflection of a mind clinging to a past that no longer serves it. A mind that lives in the energy of procrastination and stagnation. A dark, neglected home is the echo of an emotional state of apathy or depression. The untrained mind believes that its environment is the cause of its state. I feel stressed because my house is a mess. The initiate in the secrets of energy understands the inverted truth. My house is a mess because I am in a state of stress. But here resides the power. If the outside is a reflection of the inside, then by deliberately changing the outside, we can catalyze a powerful change on the inside. Cleaning your house is not a simple domestic chore. It is a ritual of psychic exorcism. The energetic signature of objects, To understand why your environment has such immense power over your state, you must remember a fundamental law. Everything is energy. Every object in your home, from the table and chairs to that old t-shirt at the back of your closet, is a field of vibrant energy. And each of these objects holds an energetic signature. Objects as anchors to the past. Many of the objects we own are not just matter. They are energetic anchors that keep us tied to old identities, old relationships, and old wounds. Gifts from a past partner whose relationship ended badly are not just objects. They are portals. Every time you see them, your nervous system can subtly relive the chemistry of pain, betrayal, or nostalgia. Keeping them in your space is like allowing the ghost of that relationship to continue living with you. Feeding the resentment parasites. Clothes that no longer fit you, stored in the closet just in case, are not just fabric. They are a silent decree. They can be an anchor to an old identity that no longer represents you, or worse, a constant judgment that, every time you see it, whispers, "You have failed." Your body is not what it should be. Piles of unfinished projects, unread books, unorganized papers, emit a constant frequency of failure, procrastination, and overwhelm. They are monuments to unfulfilled intention that drain your energy and confidence in the present. Too, the principle of energetic flowed. Ancient arts like Feng Shui are based on a simple principle. Vital energy, qi, must be able to flow freely through a space for it to be healthy and prosperous. Clutter acts as a dam in the river of this energy. Every pile of clutter in your house creates a pond of stagnant, low-vibration energy. And this stagnant energy in your environment creates, through resonance, a stagnation in your own life. It can manifest as a creative block, financial stagnation, or a general feeling of heaviness and lack of progress. A clean and ordered environment, on the other hand, allows energy to flow, to circulate. It creates an atmosphere of clarity, lightness, and possibility. The first practice, the great physical purge. The initiate in the secrets of energy knows that to purify his space, he must first eliminate what is already dead. His practice is that of conscious purging. It is not about tidying up the mess, moving it from one place to another. It is about releasing. The method is an act of active meditation. You take each object in your hand, and you do not ask the question of scarcity, "Might I need this someday?" You ask yourself questions of a higher vibration, the questions of the guardian. Does this object represent the person I am now and choose to become, or the person I was? Is the energy of this object one of expansion and joy, or of contraction, guilt, or obligation? Do I feel lighter or heavier holding it in my field? You trust the first answer from your intuition, not the later rationalization from your mind. For every object you decide to release, you do not throw it away with contempt, you honor it. You thank it for its service. Thank you for the lesson you brought me. Thank you for the joy you once gave me. Your cycle with me is over. And you release it, you donate it, recycle it, sell it, not as garbage but as an energy that has fulfilled its purpose in your life. This process can be intensely emotional. Each object released is a tie that is cut with the past. It is an act of creating space, an act of declaring to the universe that says, "I am ready for the new." The second practice, the energetic cleansing. Once the physical space is clean and clear, the guardian proceeds to clean the energetic space. He knows that arguments, sadness, and fear leave an invisible psychic residue on the walls and furniture. He uses the ancient techniques of purification, smudging. He lights sacred herbs like white sage, palo santo, or copal, and with the sacred smoke, he walks through every corner of his home, with the intention that the smoke will adhere to any heavy or stagnant energy and transmute it into light. Sound healing. He uses the vibration of sound to break up stagnant energy patterns. He can use a Tibetan singing bowl, a bell, or simply clap loudly in the corners of the rooms, visualizing how the sound wave disintegrates any negativity. Salt. He honors ancient wisdom. He knows that salt is a crystal with an immense capacity to absorb toxic energy. He places small containers with sea salt in the corners of his house for a day or two, and then discards it outside his home, knowing that it has taken the negativity with it. The third practice, the consecration of the sanctuary. Finally, With the space physically and energetically clean, the guardian consecrates it. He turns it from a simple house into a sanctuary. This is an act of intentional programming. He walks through each room of his home, and with the authority of his sovereignty, he declares the intention for that space. In his bedroom, I consecrate this space as a sanctuary of rest, healing, and intimacy. Only peace and regenerating dreams may enter here. In his workspace, I consecrate this space as an altar for creativity and focus. It is a channel for my purpose to manifest in the world. In his kitchen, I consecrate this space as a laboratory of nutrition and vitality. Every meal prepared here is a medicine for my body. He has programmed the energy of his home. He has turned it into an ally, into a force field that actively supports and amplifies his growth and well-being. Your home is no longer a warehouse for your past. It has become an incubator for your future. It is a sanctuary that reflects your peace, supports your growth, and protects your energy. You have learned to be the guardian of your final ecosystem, your physical space. You have completed the guardian's great diet. Chapter 13. Silence as Power. Our civilization suffers from horror vacui, the fear of the void. We have come to equate silence with boredom, loneliness, and nothingness. And we are so afraid of this apparent void that we have built a world designed to eradicate every last remnant of stillness. We fill every moment with noise. If we walk, we listen to a podcast. If we drive, we listen to the radio. If we wait in line, we take out our phone. Silence has become an anomaly, an uncomfortable space that we rush to fill with any form of stimulus, no matter how trivial. But what are we really afraid of? The forbidden knowledge reveals that this fear of silence is, at its root, the ego's fear of its own dissolution. The ego, the internal parasite, is a creature made of thought, of noise, of narrative. It is the incessant narrator of the story of who you are. In true silence, when the flow of thought stops, the ego ceases to exist, and for it that is death. Therefore, the voice of the parasite will do everything possible to keep you in the noise, to convince you that silence is unproductive, boring, or even dangerous, because it knows that in silence resides a power that threatens its tyranny. The anatomy of true silence. To reclaim this power, we must first dismantle our misconceptions. The silence we are talking about is not simply the absence of external sound. You can be in the quietest room in the world and still live in the midst of a deafening cacophony, that of the compulsive inner dialogue. The true silence, the silence that is power, is inner silence. It is the stillness of the mind. It is the space between two thoughts. This silence is not a sterile void. It is the womb of creation. All music is born from silence and returns to it. Every word to be heard needs the space of silence around it. Every new idea, every flash of inspiration is not born from noisy analysis but emerges like a lotus flower from the still waters of a calm mind. Silence is not the opposite of creation. It is its source. It is the quantum field in its state of pure potentiality, the fertile void before the observer collapses it into a form. Silence is also the source of true knowing. The rational mind with its chatter can only recombine the information it already knows, that of the past. True wisdom, the guidance of intuition, can only be heard when the rational mind falls silent. The oracle only whispers its secrets to those who have learned to wait in stillness. And finally, silence is the state of supreme power. In any situation, the person who can remain centered, calm, and silent in the midst of chaos is the one who holds true power. Reactivity is the signature of powerlessness. Calmness is the signature of mastery. It is the serene eye of the hurricane, the point of stillness from which all the force of the storm is directed. The first practice, the art of being still. The inner monk knows that he cannot force silence into his mind. Trying to not think is an act of violence that only creates more noise and more tension. His practice is much simpler and much deeper. It is the art of being still. The journey to silence does not begin in the mind. It begins in the body. You sit in a comfortable but dignified posture. You close your eyes, and your first task is not to think or not to think. It is simply to feel. You feel the weight of your body on the chair. You feel the contact of your feet with the ground. You feel the air on your skin. This act of anchoring in physical sensation begins to calm the first level of mental agitation. Then, you use your breath as your anchor in the ocean of the now. You simply observe the natural flow of your breath without trying to change it. You feel the gentle rise and fall of your abdomen. The breath becomes the sole object of your attention, the branch that your monkey mind can hold on to. The second practice, the dissolution of thought. Once a certain stillness has been established, the inner monk practices the art of de-identification. The parade of thoughts begins. The worry parasite appears with a to-do list. The inner critic arrives with a judgment about your meditation. The monk does not fight. He does not engage. He simply observes. He watches the thought pass like a cloud in the sky. He does not judge it as good or bad. He does not follow its story. He simply notes it. A thought of worry. And with infinite kindness he returns his attention to his breath. Every time he performs this act, noticing he has strayed and gently returning, he is doing something miraculous. He is cutting off the energy supply to the parasitic thought. A thought deprived of the fuel of your attention, of your belief in it, cannot survive. It dissolves on its own into the silence from which it came. The third practice, finding the spaces. The mastery of silence does not reside in the absence of thoughts, but in the awareness of the spaces between the thoughts. At first, thoughts seem like a continuous torrent, but with the practice of detached observation, you begin to notice something. You begin to notice the gaps, small valleys of pure silence between one thought cloud and the next. At first, this space may last for a fraction of a second, but it is in this space that true magic resides. It is a portal. It is the direct experience of your own pure consciousness, free from the tyranny of the parasite. The monk's advanced practice is to focus his attention no longer on the thoughts, but on these spaces. He rests in them, and he discovers over time that these spaces begin to expand. The valleys of silence become wider, and the thought clouds become smaller and more distant. Silence has ceased to be a terrifying void. It has become your sanctuary, your source of power, your home. You are no longer a victim of your mind's noise. You are the silence that observes it, and in that observation you find your unshakable freedom. Chapter 14. The Frequency of Joy. We have made happiness our supreme goal, but happiness as we have defined it is a trap. Happiness is conditional. It is an emotion that depends on external circumstances. I'm happy if I get the promotion. I'm happy if the day is sunny. I'm happy if you love me. By making happiness our goal, we become slaves to conditions, beggars who plead with the world to give them a reason to feel good. Joy, or bliss on the other hand, is unconditional. It is not a reaction to the external world. It is a radiation from the inner world. It does not depend on what happens. It is the natural state of your soul when it is not obstructed by the parasites of fear, complaint, and self-criticism. Happiness is a prize you try to win. Joy is the treasure you discover has always been within you. The initiate in the secrets of the mind does not seek happiness. He cultivates joy. He knows that joy is not the result of manifestation. It is the cause. The physics and biology of joy is not just a pleasant emotion. It is one of the most potent tools of the psychic exorcist and the conscious creator. Joy as the highest frequency. If we imagine emotions on a vibrational scale, fear, guilt, and shame are at the lowest end, with slow, heavy, and chaotic frequencies. At the top end, we find the elevated emotions, and at the very top of that scale, radiant and expansive, is joy. Joy is the frequency of pure, unobstructed life force. It is the vibration of creation, of expansion, of infinite possibility. It is the music of the universe itself. Joy is the ultimate parasite repellent. Mental parasites are low-vibration creatures. They are by nature incredibly serious, dramatic, and heavy. The worry parasite cannot conceive of lightness. The self-criticism parasite does not understand play. They cannot survive in an atmosphere of joy. A state of genuine joy is biochemically and energetically toxic to mental parasites. It's like trying to grow mold under direct sunlight. The high frequency of joy, with its energy of lightness and expansion, literally disintegrates the dense, contracted energetic structures of fear and resentment. You cannot worry and laugh out loud at the same time. You cannot feel deep resentment and expansive joy in the same instant. They are mutually exclusive frequencies. Therefore, cultivating joy is not an act of positive thinking. It is the most effective act of vibrational warfare there is. Joy as the healing state. When you experience a state of joy, your brain and body are flooded with a healing biochemical cocktail. You release endorphins, the body's natural painkillers. You release serotonin, the neurotransmitter of well-being. You release dopamine, which motivates you. And you release anandamide, the bliss molecule, which silences the inner critic and promotes creativity. This state of joy creates the perfect biochemical environment for your immune system to function optimally, for your cells to regenerate, and for new neural connections to be created. Joy is not just good for the soul. It is the best medicine for the body. Joy as the ultimate magnet. Finally, from the perspective of manifestation, joy is the most magnetic signal you can emit. It is the clearest declaration you can make to the universe that you already feel whole and complete. Remember that you don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. When you radiate the frequency of joy, by the law of resonance, the universe has no choice but to bring you more experiences, people, and circumstances that correspond to that same joyful vibration. You are like a lighthouse. A lighthouse doesn't try to attract ships. It simply shines. And the ships naturally sail toward its light. Joy is that light. When you shine with the light of joy, the right opportunities and relationships sail toward you effortlessly. The first practice, the deconstruction of seriousness. The greatest obstacle to joy is our addiction to seriousness. The negative ego, the inner parasite, has convinced us that to be responsible or professional or spiritual, we must be solemn and serious. Playfulness, lightness, laughter are seen as frivolous luxuries, not as essential components of a full life. The sovereign's first practice is the conscious cultivation of play. This doesn't necessarily mean playing games, but bringing a playful attitude to everything you do. You ask yourself, how can I do this serious task with a spirit of lightness? Perhaps you put on music and dance while cleaning the house. Perhaps you turn writing a report into a game of finding the most elegant words. The initiate knows that solemnity is the vibration of the ego. Joy is the vibration of the soul. By consciously choosing lightness over heaviness, you are choosing your soul over your ego. The second practice, the hunt for resonance. The sovereign knows that joy cannot be forced, but it can be invited. His practice is to become a hunter of resonance. He uses his journal not just for his decrees, but as a joy journal. Every day, he writes down 3 things, not for which he is grateful, but that brought him a moment of resonance, of flow, of effortless joy. What was the moment of my day today, however small, in which I felt most alive, most authentic, most in flow? Perhaps it was during that conversation with a friend in which he felt a deep connection. Perhaps it was while solving that complex problem at work, feeling the pleasure of the challenge. Over time, this journal reveals a map of the unique channels through which joy naturally flows into his life. It shows him the activities, people, and environments that are a vibrational yes for his soul. And with this information, he can begin to consciously design a life that contains more of these moments. The third practice, the embodiment of future joy. Finally, the master does not wait for manifestation to arrive to feel joy. He feels joy for manifestation to arrive. His practice is that of anticipatory celebration. In his meditation, he does not just visualize his completed goal. He immerses himself in the celebration. He feels the laughter bubbling in his chest. He feels the smile he cannot contain. He dances in his imagination. He feels the expansive relief, the overflowing gratitude, the pure joy of victory. He is literally conditioning his body to the biochemistry of triumph. He is becoming the tuning fork that vibrates at the frequency of his already realized dream. And that vibration, that frequency of pure joy, is the most magnetic signal he can send to the universe. Joy has ceased to be a distant goal and has become your compass, your fuel, and your parasite repellent. It is the signature of a sovereign mind, the natural state of a psychic ecosystem free from infection. You no longer seek joy in the world. You radiate it to the world, and the world, like a joyful mirror, cannot help but return the reflection of your own light. Chapter 15. Living as a sovereign, not a host. For most of our lives, we have lived as hosts in our own minds. A host, by definition, is not in control. He reacts to the environment presented to him. If the house is in disarray, a chaotic mind, he complains or adapts, but he does not feel he has the authority to clean it. If other guests are noisy and destructive, parasitic thoughts, he hides in his room or suffers in silence. The host mentality is that of the victim. It is the feeling that your mind is something that happens to you. I can't help but worry. My negative thoughts overwhelm me. I can't control my anger. Each of these phrases is an abdication of the throne. It is the declaration that you are not the sovereign of your inner kingdom, but merely a passive resident. The sovereign, on the other hand, knows the truth. He knows that his inner kingdom, his thoughts, his emotions, his beliefs, is the only domain in the entire universe over which he has absolute and total jurisdiction. He does not react to his thoughts. He chooses them. He is not swept away by his emotions. He directs them. He is the king, the legislator, and the judge of his own consciousness. This audiobook has been the journey to reclaim that throne. And living as a sovereign is the embodiment of that new identity. The three jewels of the crown of sovereignty. The life of a person who has reclaimed his sovereignty is not necessarily a life without problems. But it is a life without suffering. It is a life that radiates three unmistakable qualities. The three jewels of the crown, Dagwa, the jewel of radical responsibility, the first and most fundamental quality of the sovereign is that he accepts 100% of the responsibility for his inner experience. He completely abandons the blame game. He understands that, while he cannot control external events, he has absolute power over the meaning he gives them and over his response to them. The host says, "You made me angry." This phrase is a declaration of powerlessness. He hands over control of his emotional state to another person. The sovereign says, "When you did that, I chose to feel angry." He feels the same emotion but recognizes that the emotion is his own creation, his own response. And since it is his creation, he has the power to change it. The sovereign removes the phrase "because amale" from his vocabulary. He knows that his peace, his joy, and his suffering are not the fault of the government, the economy, his partner, or his past. They are the result of his own management of his inner kingdom. This is not a burden. It is the ultimate liberation, because the moment you stop blaming the world, you reclaim all your power to change your life. The jewel of unshakable peace. The second quality of the sovereign is a peace that does not depend on circumstances. The host seeks peace externally. He believes he will feel at peace when he solves all his problems, when he has enough money, when the world conforms to his desires. His peace is always conditional and therefore fragile. The sovereign finds peace internally. His peace is not born from the absence of problems, but from his de-identification with them. It is the peace of the silent witness we have cultivated. The sovereign experiences life's ups and downs, storms and sunny days, but his core identity is anchored in pure consciousness, in the sky that watches the clouds pass. This peace is unconditional. It is unshakable. It is the serene eye of the hurricane, the jewel of effortless action. Finally, the sovereign acts in the world in a radically different way. The host, feeling like a victim, acts from force and struggle. He tries to control, manipulate, and force outcomes because he does not trust the flow of life. His action is exhausting. The sovereign, operating from a center of peace and trust, practices the art of wu-wei, effortless action. His actions no longer arise from the anxious planning of the parasitic ego. They emerge spontaneously and intuitively from the silence of his being. He is in a state of dance with the universe. He knows when to move with total energy and when to wait with infinite patience. His action is incredibly effective because he does not fight the current of life but moves with it. The first practice, the dissolution of technique. The sovereign no longer clings to techniques. Why? Because he has practiced them with such devotion that they have become automatic, subconscious. He no longer needs to practice meditation to find silence. Silence has become his default state, the ever-present sky behind the clouds of mental activity. He no longer needs to repeat power affirmations. His inner dialogue, by habit, has become a flow of thoughts of self-respect and possibility. He no longer needs to force a feeling of gratitude. His heart, having been trained in coherence, naturally resides in a state of appreciation for the simple miracle of existence. Conscious effort dissolves into a state of being. The second practice, the embodiment of principles. The sovereign's life is the living embodiment of the principles of this manual. He lives as a psychic guardian. His state of natural high vibration becomes his most potent shield. He no longer has to protect himself from negativity. It simply no longer resonates with him. He moves through the world's chaos like a ship through waves, feeling the motion but not letting the water in. His informational and social hygiene is no longer a forced discipline. It is a natural preference. Just as a healthy body craves nutritious foods, a healthy mind craves conversations and content that uplift it. He lives as a silent exorcist. The sovereign no longer fights parasites, because in his inner ecosystem of peace and joy, they cannot find nourishment to survive. When an old parasitic thought appears, like a distant echo of the past, he does not combat it. He sees it with the same indifference with which a lion sees a mosquito. He observes it without giving it energy, and the thought fades away for lack of a host to latch onto. He lives as an alchemist. The sovereign sees every challenge, not as an attack, but as an opportunity for alchemy. He uses the energy of frustration as fuel for change. He uses that of fear as a compass toward growth. And he uses forgiveness as the fire that constantly transmutes the debts of the past into the freedom of the present. Sovereignty is not a destination. It is a decision renewed at every instant. It is the choice to be the author of your experience, rather than a character in someone else's story. You have completed the forbidden manual. You have learned to disinfect your soul, to reclaim your throne, and to govern your inner kingdom with wisdom and power. Now only one thing remains: to take this new identity, this sovereignty, and walk through the world not as someone who has learned a secret, but as someone who is the secret. Our journey began in the shadows of the mind, with the unsettling feeling that we were not the only inhabitants of our own being. We departed from the experience of powerlessness, of self-sabotage, of being a host in our own home. And throughout this forbidden manual, we have undertaken a silent revolution, an act of exorcism and reclamation. First, we mapped the ecosystem of the mind, learning to differentiate the native flora of our soul from the invasive species. We unmasked the inner parasite, the negative ego, and understood how we become infected through social contagion. Then, we entered the exorcist's arsenal. We forged our tools, the light of consciousness as the universal antiseptic, the energetic shield to protect our boundaries, and the sharp sword of the word to cut through illusions with the power of decree. We entered the ritual of purification. We practiced the energetic fast to starve the parasites, learned alchemical transmutation to turn their poison into medicine, and ignited the fire of forgiveness to cut the old ties that bound us to the past. Finally, we became the guardians of our new freedom. We learned to cultivate an information diet that nourishes, a social hygiene that protects, and a physical sanctuary that reflects our inner peace. We ascended to sovereignty, discovering the power of silence, the frequency of joy, and the truth that we are the rulers and not the hosts of our consciousness. The war is over, not because you have annihilated an enemy, but because you have realized that the only battlefield was your own consciousness, and that the only necessary weapon was your own light. A liberated mind is not an empty mind, it is a clear mind. It is an ecosystem where parasitic thoughts no longer find fertile ground to nest. A liberated mind is not a mind without emotions. It is a mind where emotions are messengers that flow freely, without getting stuck in the poison of resentment or fear. A liberated mind is not a mind free of challenges. It is a mind free of the unnecessary suffering that is born from identification with negativity. You are no longer the passive host of a chaotic ecosystem. You are the conscious gardener of your own inner Eden. You know what seeds to plant, those of peace, joy, and love, and what weeds to pull with the gentle yet firm hand of your consciousness. Your journey does not end here. Your freedom begins now. Your practice is no longer that of the exorcist who fights in the dark. It is that of the guardian who walks in the light. Your mission from this moment on is simple. Maintain clarity. Every day and every moment, choose the light of your consciousness over the shadows of programming. Choose the peace of your sovereignty over the noise of chaos. Your mind is your sanctuary. Protect it. If this forbidden manual for mental liberation has resonated with you and has returned the keys to your own kingdom, we invite you to continue this exploration. Subscribe to our channel, The Hidden Knowledge, for more wisdom that liberates. Like this video as a declaration of your mental sovereignty. Share this knowledge with someone who needs to remember that they are the guardian of their own mind. Thank you for your time, for your courage, and for the brave decision to embark on the sacred work of inner purification. Your mind is now free.